crazy is the consensus. So I normally don't like to use that word because I think that that can be used to stigmatize mental health issues. But I'm going to use it in a different kind of way here, where I'm using it more broad and to point out um, the insanity of the norm. So basically, we all have we all have our perceptions of the world, and that's all that we have. And our perceptions are shaped by our beliefs and the way that we think and identify. And so notice that the perception is shaped by things that are subjective and to an extent arbitrary. So uh, basically, whatever beliefs we hold that turn out to be socially acceptable or are pragmatic for our survival, or at least appear to be pragmatic, or believed to be pragmatic. As long as these boxes are all checked, then we start to gravitate towards belief systems that are similar to each other's, because we're all trying to survive in the same space. So we build a consensus. Um, Even though many people can coexist in a similar space and culture, they're going to have slightly different, or maybe even largely different perceptions and identities and thoughts, and beliefs. But they're going to be compatible, and that's what allows this consensus to be built. And that's why we still have conflicts and squabbles and arguments, because even though everything appears to be fairly cohesive, there's under the surface there's a lot of differences. Now, all of these people, now why I say crazy is the consensus is because there seems to be a sort of groupthink mentality, almost sometimes turns more toxic into like a mob mentality that can develop when you have a lot of people who have nothing but beliefs and ideas and thoughts, and they basically create an illusion together that reinforces their beliefs as being not just a belief but to be the absolute truth. And this creates a group delusion. So really, this consensus, the consensus of that people build, and the reality they construct is delusional because it's reinforced by false reinforcements that are put into place by people just like everyone else who's deluded. And then what happens is then you get some people who are the outliers. They are no different in the sense that they have perceptual reality that is relative and arbitrary, but theirs is incompatible with the consensus. And then what happens is that the consensus, because it's trying to keep the illusion going and it needs to reinforce itself, it needs to demonize anybody who disagrees and doesn't fall into the consensus. And then what happens is a lot of those people are called derogatory things like crazy. But really, what's going on here is they're being ostracized because they don't share the same delusion as everyone else does. So it's kind of funny. But of course, there's some people who have are really suffering because of mental health issues, and could be brain trauma or neurological developmental issues or anything like that. And as a result of that, that may make it increasingly difficult to join the consensus delusion that everyone else is living in. However, it doesn't make their experience any less valid, and that's what's important to realize, is that everybody's delusion is just as invalid. A lot of times, too, people who may be having an awakening, this isn't necessarily always true, and I'm not qualified to give medical advice whatsoever, but just something to think about, is that sometimes people who are having an awakening, or people who are just kind of perceive the world, different, but are still able to inhabit the consensus reality without a problem. Sometimes these people are labeled the derogatory term crazy, or sometimes they're lumped together with people who need some sort of serious help, and that's the problem that emerges when we consider one delusion more valid than another. When somebody's starting to break out of the consensus reality, that's not because that doesn't mean there's necessarily anything, that's there's anything wrong with him. That might mean that he is achieving an awakening, which is a wonderful thing. So there's probably a lot of people who get misdiagnosed as having some sort of mental health issue when they're actually having an awakening. And this happens because people, just the average person considers that person to be deluded, when really we're all deluded. So we need to make more room for different ways of seeing the world, is what I think. We need to make more room for people who have different beliefs, and we need to be curious about them. And we should not ironically, the lesson of the story is that of this episode is that we should not call people crazy, because that is rather hypocritical. So yeah, if you like this video, then please hit the like button. If you want to see more content like this, then please hit the subscribe button. If you know anybody who might like this, then please share it. If you have anything you want to say, then please comment down below. And if you want to get notifications whenever I drop new content, then hit that little bell button. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.